Hi everyone, my name's Peter. Today I want to give you a few tips and tricks on how to add some depth to your drawings. This is not going to be an exhaustive list, right? And these are not examples I intend for anyone to follow exactly. Kind of like when you copy your friend's homework, you want to change it up a little bit so the teacher doesn't notice. I'm going to keep it very loose and quick and sketchy so that it doesn't take too long. And basically, this is just something you can look at and see it and then go, oh yeah, that is a cool way. Maybe I can play around with that. And then you can learn about it yourself. All right, so let's hop right into it. 4 ways to add depth to your drawings. Now, I am kind of doing these with doodling, abstract drawing in mind, but whatever kind of art or drawing you're doing, I'm sure you can experiment and find a way to work these into what you're doing. This first drawing I'm doing, this first technique, the first method, I'm doing a very rough square here to encourage you that things don't have to be perfect. This first one is called overlapping sticks. That's what we'll call it. And so say we have a stick going this way, all right, and a stick going this way. Now these don't have to be sticks. These can be literally anything. These can be sticks or roads or people, pianos, waves, anything. And then say we have, I'm oversimplifying everything, okay, here. I have another stick going here, right, and a stick going here. Basically, I want us to add layers to the drawing. After every example I give you, I'm going to also show examples from my own art that have these principles exemplified in it, if that makes any sense, okay? So basically, if you have something like this going on, some lines, you want to draw some other lines behind it, and then imagine that there's light coming from one direction. I usually use the upper right-hand corner, right? Usually coming from this way. Sometimes I have it from the other direction, but if it's coming from this way, then there should be some shadows. And so I kind of do this kind of number. Already, there's a little bit more depth because it looks like these 2 sticks are kind of behind it, right? And even if we take the square into account, we can add some more shading and shadow like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. None of this has to be perfect, right? So that's a very simple idea right there. All right, and you can keep going, adding more sticks, adding more layers and levels, add a background, okay? And you'll see as we move on to the second idea here, that you can start combining all of these. First, let me show you some examples from my own work where you can see these overlapping sticks ideas, okay? Here's one recent drawing I did where you can see this very easily in the windows, for one thing. Each window has these panes, or the crosses in the middle, and then behind it are some little pipes and stuff, right? The pipes are clearly behind the front there, and in the back I even darkened it up a little bit more to give it some more depth, right? In this case, the sticks in the background are curved, but even more than the windows, there's some overlapping sticks and ideas like this right here in the middle, more tightly knit together there. All over the place there are overlapping sticks. Here in the door, all these little details here, pretty much just tons and tons of overlapping sticks tucked together to create lots of, well, really just lots of depth with detail there. Another example here with this drawing, well, there's a lot going on, but if you look here, these are curved sticks. As you can see, I've shaded part of them to create the idea that it's behind part of the other drawing. Here you can see I could have shaded part of these to increase the effect, but I didn't. Here I did it a little bit more with these, overlapping here. Just things going in front of other things, and then with a little bit of shading to enhance the idea, right? Once again, overlapping sticks. You can see it over and over again. There's lots of ways you can do this, and just because this is the way I do it doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it. One more example, lots of overlapping sticks here. You can see all these going in one direction, and then there's some sticks in the background. You can clearly tell it gives a hint of depth to the drawing, multiple layers and levels. Even up here, there's sticks overlapping some shapes, which I made the shadows kind of curve around the shapes, so you know what shape they are. All right, secondly, this next one is called Tangled Noodles. You spell noodles? All right, so basically, I have a lot of noodles. I draw noodles a lot. Tentacles, vines, whatever you want to call them. The principle you're going to see here is that as I draw, as I doodle, I leave a lot of gaps. I don't completely finish a lot of stuff, right? You see I left a gap here, and maybe as I draw another one here, I'll leave another gap here. I'm going a lot faster than I normally would go. It's okay. Don't rush yourself, but it's okay to go fast too. And that way, as we keep going, you can fly your noodles through those gaps, right? And that will make sure that you don't end up drawing everything on the same layer. Like here in the first example, we have two distinct layers, the top layer with these two sticks and the second layer with the second two sticks. Here, however, we have things intersecting on a couple different layers. Not everything has its own layer. That helps give the drawing a little bit more depth. And then you can do something like you did on this one. Add some shading as they overlap, right? And it can be a little bit more complicated with these noodles because noodles are weird shapes and you don't always understand how they overlap. And even they could start creating shadows on themselves, right? As they start, like curling back on themselves, stuff like that. Like, who knows how noodles work? Not even science knows. It's okay. Obviously, it's good to just experiment around with this. Also, for things like overlapping sticks, if you, for example, have a stick here and another stick here, if you can always draw the shadow right next to it like I did here, or if you draw a shadow here, it gives the illusion or the idea that this stick is farther away from this one, casting the shadow here. Here, the stick is even farther away. Who knows how it all works? The brain kind of figures it all out. Let me show you some places where I use these tangled noodles, and it might make more sense. All right, so here, in this one, for example, there's a lot of like little noodles and stuff. A lot of stuff that looks like ramen. But we want to look at the stuff that goes under some stuff, like this noodle here, under some stuff and over other things, right? That's what we're looking for. Things that don't exist just on one layer. This next one might be a better example. Look at this. Here over on the left side, we have a lot of noodles, and this goes under this thing, over it, and then under. Over here, this goes under, over, under. And I didn't draw this all at once. I might have drawn these rib-looking things far ahead of time and then just left some gaps for later. I didn't know what I was going to come back and draw later, right? I had no idea. I was just leaving myself some options. And what we want is this sense of deep interlock so that things could kind of wind around itself and around each other. Here on the next one, we see it again. A lot of these vine-looking things. There's hardly any of these vines that are only behind or only in front. Here's one that goes in front of something, and then behind something, and then in front. Here's one that goes behind, and then in front, and then behind again, right? Here's one that goes behind and then in front. Here's something that goes behind and then in front and then behind again. That's what I'm trying to encourage. You want to try to tie some knots, create some tangles that you think might be difficult to untie if it existed in real life, right? Here you can kind of see something from the previous principle with those crisscross sticks, right? But it's also the tangled noodles too. Things overlapping in and out of each other, in front of and behind each other. You know what I mean? Also, as you draw these shadows on shapes, well, let me put it over here. For example, if you have a stick like this, if you draw a shadow like this, it gives the idea that the stick is round, right? But if you draw this shadow like this, it gives the idea that the stick is maybe rectangular in shape. Okay, let's move on. The third idea is called almost parallels. Basically, we have a bunch of lines here. We draw a bunch of lines here that are going to be almost parallel, or maybe not even almost, but they're all kind of heading in the same direction. And maybe we'll draw like a little frame behind it here, which will kind of give some more depth in a second. The idea is that, what if you had like a pile of sticks? Some of them will be on top, some of them will be below, and maybe even with individual sticks, one end of one stick will be on top, and the same end of another stick might be below some other sticks, right? So kind of start burying. To bury one end of a stick, make it all black and color it in. Maybe even whole sticks. And of course, these don't have to be sticks. You know, this could be like muscle sinews or weird alien textures or just tree bark or whatever you want it to be. But already this is adding some depth. It's more interesting to look at than just the lines before. And of course, with this frame we have here, we can color in this part. Like so. That makes it more interesting already. Now, you might notice this background here. Before I get into this, let me show you some examples of these almost parallels in my artwork. In this one, we see several examples of it, and they're all kind of small examples. Here you can see it. Some of the sticks or sections, I call them sticks, but in my mind, they're not really supposed to be sticks. They're just, I kind of have little words in my mind for different parts of texture that I use. Like, for example, you know, these are like blobs, and these are, I don't know. Just let me call them sticks, okay? But as you can see, this part, as it grows darker here in this little section of it, it kind of descends away from the viewer, and this part looks brighter, and it looks kind of closer to you, right? You can see this kind of semicircle area here. Can you see I don't know if my cursor shows up very well, but this is kind of the same idea, almost parallels. These are very close to being parallel, actually, but this kind of concentric parallel. The same idea right here. Some contrast, some depth, right? You can remix it and do it in lots of different ways. Almost the same kind of thing here, but it's curved. And here, you see it happening all over the place. Kind of some texture created by the same sort of thing over here. What am I doing? Anyways, over here, almost the whole drawing is a bunch of weird little tight clumps of almost parallels. Kind of like hatch marks sectioned off and stitched together in different, it's like a patchwork, a quilt of almost parallels, right? Over here, well, this is really just hatch marks, but this little corner right here is what I want to show you, right? This is almost parallels. This is pretty much exactly what I did. And you can see it gets darker and darker as it goes down here until it's totally black. You can work in different textures into your sticks and curve them around, do different stuff with them. But you can see it gets darker and it gets deeper, right? And here in this one, this is pretty much just another exercise in texture using this, right? This is what I'm talking about. Hopefully that helps some. All right, there you go. Now, looking back again at this part I colored in the background will lead us on to the fourth and final idea of this drawing, which is the deep black. No, the deep dark. Basically, say we have some kind of stuff going on here in near the borders of the drawing, right? This could be anything. And then maybe there's a couple of things going across. That's fine. Basically, all of this stuff that I've just drawn will become more interesting if I color in everything else. I'm going to speed this part up. There you go. It's very messy and not very crisp, but you see all these lines, it popped out once I draw the background dark black. The rest of it pops forward. And this is something I struggle with a lot because I like to pack as much detail as I can in my drawings. And of course, you can't pack detail into something that's just plain flat black, right? That's tough for me. But it's a sacrifice you got to make sometimes because everything else becomes cooler. All right, this one's a little bit interesting because you might think that this is a good example of it right here. Although I don't really think that this little spiky halo counts as a deep dark because, well, maybe it does, but this doesn't really seem deep. This kind of pops out from the paper, you know. However, stuff like this, particularly this little section right here, is kind of what I'm talking about. This deep dark right here that sinks back into the paper, right? This a little bit, it just helps if it's surrounded by a bunch of other details, right? Coloring stuff in black like that. Over here, this is the cover of my Day Fever book before it was colored in. This is a slightly better example. When you look back here, that helps, especially if it's, yeah, all the details around it pop a little bit more over here, right? If this had just been plain white or some more details, it all would have looked a little bit more bland. Over here, as we slowly go down the drawing, this darkness here helps a lot. And even farther down here, all of this darkness, right? Especially this section here and all of this. Once again, in the back of my mind, I was kind of thinking that there was light coming from the upper right-hand corner, which is why this is the darkest section down here in the lower left. Same kind of idea here. This is the deep, this is right here, the deep, deep dark. Now, you might notice that a lot of these things are good to combine together. And I almost have already. There's like almost parallels, there's some noodles, overlapping sticks, right? These are just a few little examples. Hopefully it helped you a little bit. I don't want to talk about it too much. If these made sense to you, hopefully it's helpful. I find it really hard to kind of describe and verbalize and give examples of this sort of thing because I kind of, I haven't figured it all out myself. I'm not completely satisfied with the depth of my drawings, which is something I really do appreciate, which is something I really do strive for in my drawings, is adding depth. There was one point a number of years ago when I noticed my drawings didn't have as much depth as I desired, and I was like, I want more. So I haven't solved it. I don't know all the answers, but hopefully this helped you a little bit. Let me know if you have any more questions or if you have any, if you want me to make other videos like this about any other topics. I know this is very crude and sloppy as far as style, but just want to, I don't know. Hopefully it was helpful. All right. Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a good day. See you later.